All right. So today we're going to talk about color theory. I'm going to go through a little lesson on that. So color is obviously one of the most important elements of design. And once you really have a good understanding of color theory, it can make a really huge difference in how you plan your artwork and how you control how viewers see your artwork. So to start, we're going to look at the very basic color wheel. And I imagine that a lot of you have seen this before in visual art. You do need to know this color wheel. You need to know all your colors on it. Okay? And this can tell us a ton of things. It's not just like memorizing colors in a space arbitrarily. The order of all these colors actually tells us a ton of stuff, and we can learn so much just from having this wheel sort of understood and memorized, really. So we can figure out that colors that are opposite each other, or the farther apart that colors are on the wheel, the more they enhance one another, they bring each other out. They have high contrast. So for example, if I put yellow beside purple, I'm going to make them stand out a lot. Whereas if I put colors that are really near to each other on the wheel beside each other, say I put something yellow beside something green or beside something blue-green, they're still fairly close to each other on this side of the wheel, so they're going to blend well together. They're not going to have high contrast and make each other stand out. So that's something that's really useful for us. We can also separate our wheel in two halves, essentially. We've got our warm colors on this side, okay, the yellows, oranges, and reds. I like to think of it as the color of flames. It's one good way to remember it. And the cool colors, the greens, blues, and purples. Okay, and that's really important as well, because when we use warm colors, colors on this side of the wheel, they actually tend to look like they're moving forward in our work of art. And if we use colors that are cool, they tend to look like they're moving into the background, sort of a trick with our human eyes. So there's lots of different things that this wheel can tell us. And it can also tell us if you're painting how to mix colors. So for example, we've got our primary colors, yellow, red, and blue. These colors can't be created. Okay, you have to, if you're using paints, you have to actually get these paint colors. You can't mix them together. But having those colors, we can make everything else on the wheel. So if you are mixing blue with yellow, halfway between them on the wheel, we get green. So if you mix those two together, that's what you're going to get. If I want to make blue-green, I look at what's on either side of it. I'm going to mix green with blue, and I'm going to be able to mix with my paints blue-green. Obviously, we're not really working with paints too much here in media art, but it is kind of a neat little tidbit to know about the color wheel. Excuse me. All right, so we've got our primary colors, as I said, also our secondary colors. So our secondary colors are the ones that we get when we mix primaries together. So for example, we've got our yellow and our red, we mix them together, we get a secondary color. When we mix a secondary color with a primary color, so yellow, okay, with an orange, we're going to get a yellow-orange, and those are tertiary colors. The more we mix our colors, the less intense they get. So really, in theory, our primary colors are the most intense, and as you start to mix these paints or these colors together, they do get less intense. Although we do have the opportunity on Photoshop to adjust our saturation and that sort of thing, so we have some little secret tricks that we can sort of mess around with that rule a little bit. Okay, so as I said, we've got our primary colors, red, blue, and yellow. We cannot create these by mixing paints together. I used to be really mean, and when I taught grade 9 visual art, I used to give them all the colors on the wheel except red and ask them to try to make red, and they would spend like an hour, and then by the end they'd learn that they actually can't. But they never forget, you can't make red, blue, and yellow. These are primary colors. Okay, secondary, as we saw on the wheel, orange, purple, and green, and our tertiaries, okay, the ones that basically are just combining the names together. You mix red with orange, you get red-orange. You mix yellow with green, you get yellow-green. So fairly easy to actually remember how to label your wheel once you understand it. Okay, as I said, we cut our wheel in half. We've got all our warm colors on one side. Sorry, my wheel is actually in a different orientation on each screen here. It might be a little bit confusing. But we've got our warm colors, colors of flame, and our cool colors. The cool colors are actually a lot more calming as well. So if you're trying to create a mood in a piece of artwork, you use blues, blue violets, greens. These are all very natural colors, and it creates more of a soothing, calm feel. Whereas if you've got yellows, oranges, and reds, it's going to appear to be coming forward in the page, as I said, but it's also going to be sort of more heartwarming, maybe, and intense. Okay, it gives a bit more energy. Okay, so again, these warm colors tend to advance from our screen or from your image, and they're exciting. There's an energy to those colors. We look at the cool colors again, greens, blues, and purples, and these look like they're moving back into the page. So again, you can use that to your advantage, depending what you're trying to get your viewer to look at first. Say there's one image you really want to make stand out. You make it a warm color against a cool color. The warm color is going to look, it's going to be seen first and look like it's more coming off of the screen. And these are a little bit more calm, the cool colors as well. They can be sad, typically, especially if you use a lot of blues. Okay, so tint and shade. Whoop. Uh-oh. Let me get back here. Okay. Tints and shades. Basically, we've got all our colors on the color wheel here. Red, red-orange, orange, yellow-orange, and so on. Anything that is lighter than that color, so say I'm with orange, if I were to mix white with it, okay, the colors get lighter. These are tints of orange. If I were to imagine I'm mixing black with it, okay, the colors are going to get subtly darker. Okay, and you see this when you open up your hue and saturation or your color palette window on Photoshop. You see when you pick each color the range of tints and shades that you can choose. So I want you to start using this terminology. So if you have something on your screen and it's a yellow and I say to you, you know, I might change that color, you might want to tint it a little bit. I want you to recognize that I'm saying to you, I think you should make that a lighter yellow. Okay, so now we're going to get into our color schemes. There's just a few that we're going to get into. I mean, there's tons of actually different color schemes, and essentially these are just colors that sort of can bring about a certain feeling, and we sort of jump to using them as much as possible and when we're creating our artwork, just when we understand the impacts that they can have and what we're trying to convey to the viewer. So the first one is monochromatic, and essentially this is just tints and shades of one color. So here, this picture is probably not the best example. This is a piece by Picasso. It's very, very sad, and other than the guitar, we can see that he's used monochromatic colors throughout the remainder of the painting. So if we were to go back, we look at sort of our blue-ish, okay, and it's got sort of all of these blues in the range, sort of tints and shades of that blue. It's more of kind of a blue-gray, I would say, as well. And these will always include black and white as well. Technically, we don't refer to those as colors. Those are actually neutrals. Okay, there's not a lot of contrast, there's only one color, right? And it has emotional impacts depending on the colors you choose. Obviously you choose blue, it's going to be sad. You choose red, it might have a feeling of passion, okay, or excitement, okay, or also danger. Red can mean that as well. Okay, so monochromatic. Analogous. These are when we use 3 to 5 colors beside each other on the wheel, and it can be any 3 to 5. So here it's showing just 3 here on the wheel. So we've got in this example below, we've kind of got a blue-green, a blue, and a blue-violet going on, and probably even a violet as well. And again, white and black in there, but don't really count. They're neutrals. Okay, this is a little bit richer than monochromatic because obviously we've got more colors than just one on the wheel, but it's still harmonious. Remember what I said at the beginning, if they're closer together on the wheel, they're going to blend well together. It's not distracting to the eye, okay? It's pretty soothing. Complementary colors. We really need to know our complementary colors. Okay, these are opposite colors on the wheel. This is super intense and high contrast. We don't want to use this a lot. I mean, you don't want to, if you make an entire piece using red and green because they're exactly opposite. Christmas colors are no accident. Okay, it can be intense and jarring to the eye. Okay, but if you have a word that's yellow and you want to make it stand out, as I said, you could put something subtly purple or even something close to purple behind it because it's exactly opposite on the wheel, and you know it's going to help it stand out. Okay, so I've gone through quite a few things with color theory, and what I want you to do in your sketchbook is sort of make a reference section for yourself on a couple pages in your book. So obviously you're going to have to color it because we're talking about color here. I want you to make a color wheel and have it labeled with all the names of the colors. I'm going to test you on this. You need to have it memorized. It's super important. Excuse me. I've had students be creative with this. Again, you can turn it into a picture if you want. It doesn't have to be in the shape of a wheel per se, okay? But as long as you have them all in order, that's all that I really care about. You want definitions and colored examples of all of the following terms. So basically all of the different ones that I went through, except hue, intensity, and value. Don't worry about that one. Okay, so just all of the other terms and the color schemes as well. And the color schemes are going to be important because you're going to get to use those in the next assignment that we're going to do on Photoshop. So there should be some sketchbook examples at the front that you can take a look at too and see how other students have organized this in your book. But essentially you want to make a good resource for yourself so you can study and remember all of these different color terms.